So, I do a lot of fermenting on my channel here. And at this point, if you follow me on Instagram or TikTok, it's actually just what I'm best known for. And here on YouTube, I had a comment the other day asking me what I think are sort of like the most essential pieces of equipment to get started in fermenting. So that's what this video is going to be about. This is going to be my top essentials for starting fermenting. And fortunately for you guys, a lot of this equipment is quite cheap and easy to get. So today we're going to run through some essentials and not so essentials, but will make your life easier equipment. So the first thing on my list, and in my opinion the most important, is a good fermentation vessel. We have a few different options here, from food grade plastic to glass and earthenware. Personally, I use all three, but for different situations and different ferments. Let's start with plastic. Plastic is great because it's durable, it's cheap, and it comes in all different shapes and sizes. I always make sure to use food grade plastic, and when I use plastic, it's only ever for short-term ferments such as kimchi, sauerkraut, or makgeolli. Plastic is actually what most people in Korea ferment with these days. While traditionally Koreans would ferment in these big earthenware pots called kimchi pots, a lot of people in Korea live in apartments, so it takes up a lot of space to use these. So instead, in Korean supermarkets, you'll often find sections dedicated to plastic containers made just for fermenting. And I have a few of these too, and some of them come with some cool features like this one, which has this like thingy-mabob that keeps everything pushed down. Up next, we have glass. I have quite a few different sizes of glass jars here in the kitchen, however these are my favorite. These are IKEA glass jars and they hold just under 2 liters, and IKEA also sells a different range of lid types, which I've taken full advantage of. When I'm fermenting something that doesn't need to be airtight, I use these glass lids, which IKEA sells separately, but when I do anaerobic ferments that produce a lot of gas, I bought these plastic lids and drilled some holes in the top so I can fit an airlock. Another style of jar that's great for fermenting and probably easy to get are these flip top jars. Most of mine are from Kilner, which is a classic English brand for glassware, but there are a ton of other brands that make great and cheaper jars too, like this IKEA one. One thing I like to do with these is to remove the lid assembly, and now you can use this as an open fermenter with a bit of cheesecloth. And of course, once the fermentation is done, just slap together the lid assembly and you've got a jar to store your finished ferments in. Up next in the glass category, it's just empty jars from various food products. I'm always looking out for nice jars to save and to use as fermenting vessels. On the more expensive side of fermentation vessels, we have ceramic or earthenware. This is a more traditional vessel to use for a lot of ferments. I only have like 2 of these in smaller sizes, but I also do have a few larger kimchi pots, which I almost never use for fermenting because they're just too big. Earthenware is great because it's porous, which gives better insulation, meaning whatever's inside is less likely to change temperature too much. These are also great for keeping ferments in the dark. A lot of times when I'm using glass and I need to keep something dark, I'll put it into a cabinet to ferment, but these, I can keep these out in the open and they'll keep whatever's inside just completely dark. So we've covered fermenting vessels, which is the main thing you really need to ferment, but there are a bunch of other little miscellaneous things that can make fermentation easier and can help increase your success rate. First up is salt, but not any old salt. This is kosher salt. Regular table salt has iodine in it, which is not good for fermentation as iodine kills bacteria, but we need bacteria for fermenting. Personally, I do use sea salt, but kosher salt also works great. And to be honest, I can't tell the difference in taste between the two. Just make sure it's non-iodized salt. Next up on my list of miscellaneous items is cheesecloth and elastic bands. Cheesecloth is useful as covers for open ferments, and even sometimes I'll lay them onto the surface of some of my ferments like this miso. I also like to keep a tub of elastic bands to go along with the cheesecloth. I'll collect these from produce and stuff that we buy and throw them in here along with the others. I even went online and bought a pack of larger, thicker elastic bands for some of the larger jars that I have. Now this one is completely unnecessary, but it does make my life so much easier when it comes to fermenting. This is a dehydrator, which I use to ferment things that need to be fermented at higher temperatures. I've actually drilled a hole into the top and threaded this oven thermometer in so I can monitor the exact temperature inside. I also went for this design because the shelves are removable, allowing me to fit taller jars and such in it, even though this style of dehydrator is a little bit more pricey. You might be thinking, wait, doesn't a dehydrator dehydrate? Well, yeah, it does, but that's why when I use this, I make sure to properly cover whatever I'm fermenting so that it doesn't lose too much moisture. You can also use other things like proofing bins and actual fermentation chambers, but I still like to use this as a dehydrator too, so this actually serves me pretty well. These little guys here are airlocks. These allow gas to escape from inside the vessel, but don't allow outside air to enter into the vessel. You fill up this little reservoir here with water, and this forms an airtight seal that allows gas to escape as pressure builds up inside the vessel. I buy these online, they come in like packs of 4 or 5, and they come with rubber gaskets to go with them. The way I use them is by drilling holes into the top of the lids of some of my vessels, fitting the gasket, and then pushing in the airlock. I mostly use this when I'm fermenting alcohol, which produces a lot of gas in the process and is easily susceptible to contamination. Speaking of contamination, next up is sanitizer. This is a brewing sanitizer that I use mostly for when I ferment liquids or need to sanitize bottles. Most of the time I'll use it in a spray bottle pre-mixed with water. You can check the container for the ratio of water to sanitizer that you need to do this. Sometimes I'll also opt for just steaming my containers to sanitize, but only if it's glass or ceramic. But you do have to be careful when doing this, and make sure you're careful not to burn yourself on hot glass or earthenware. I also sometimes use isopropyl alcohol or rubbing alcohol. I buy 99% strength, and then I water it down to about 70 or 80 as it makes it more effective at sanitizing. All I do is squirt some inside the vessel and then wipe it down with a bit of clean kitchen towel, and then let it completely dry off. So that's all I can think of for this video for what I deem is essential for fermenting. Obviously, you don't need everything that I've mentioned in this video. You can basically just start off with a bit of salt, some vegetables, and the vessel, and then you could make all sorts of different ferments. So I do have plans to sort of expand on my little fermentation equipment collection, and one of those things is actually building a fermentation chamber as well, so hopefully I can get that done by the end of the year. So if you did like this video, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the like button and leave a comment if you think I missed out on anything that you think is essential for fermenting as well.